Welcome to Your Reset with Christiane Piano, where the purpose is to support you in releasing all that you are not, so the truth of who you really are can emerge. This is accomplished through working with the body-mind from an ontological perspective. We use various modalities to support you in supporting yourself exactly where you are, so that you may return to an experience of wholeness and ease, moment by moment. Deep reflection is one of the greatest tools through which to do this. To take a moment, to pause, assess, reflect, and literally and figuratively reset, come back to center, and move back into your one and precious life with increased clarity and purpose. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Christiane Piano. I was sitting here earlier preparing for today's session. I realized something that actually took my breath away for a moment. We are here together for the 100th episode. 100 times we've met like this. 100 conversations that have traveled from my heart to your ears. When YourReset Reflections was born 2 years ago, it started as a simple desire to create a space where we could talk honestly about growth, body-mind well-being, and the often messy, unpolished reality of navigating this life. And as I was sitting with what to share for this milestone, I felt this strong pull to go back. I actually went and listened to that very first episode, and it was a strange yet beautiful experience. It felt like visiting an old version of myself. It sparked something in me, a desire to circle back to those roots, but to do it with the perspective of everything we've navigated together since then. Because I'm not the same person I was in episode 1, and I imagine you aren't either. This podcast was always meant to be a support for you on your path, a companion in the quiet moments. And as I reflected on that, I realized that for this special celebration, I didn't want the air to just be filled with my voice. I wanted to hear the echo of how these reflections have landed in your world. So I reached out. I asked some of you to share what this journey has meant for you. And I have to tell you, I was so deeply moved when you said yes, to hear your voices, your stories, and your own becoming. It reminds me why we do this. So today, the air is shared. This episode is a tapestry. You'll hear from some people from our community, and later on, a very special conversation with Reba Joy from New Orleans, someone who has been walking this path of body-mind well-being and maturation for a very long time. But before we hear from them, I'd love to just pause for a second and ask you, when you think of the word growth, what actually comes to mind for you? What are the associations that bubble up? Is it a specific belief you've carried about what it means to improve? Does a certain person come to mind? Or maybe a location, a place where you felt you were growing, or perhaps where you felt stuck? Is it a specific situation, a situation that may feel tied to that word for you? When you look at the landscape of your own life, does growth feel like an upward climb? Does it feel like something that has to be measured or checked off or proven? Or does it feel like something else entirely? can we just let those thoughts or those images sit there for a second? We don't have to do anything with them. We're just noticing at the moment. What does growth actually look like to you right now? Where do those ideas even come from? If you feel a need, pause for your listening and just jot these things down, or just take a moment to sit with what comes to mind. So as we listen to the voices from the community, I invite you to listen not to just their words, but to the quality of what they are sharing. Listen for the texture of their experience. See if you can hear whether what they are sharing sounds like a list of achievements or if it sounds like a different kind of reality unfolding. So here we go. I'm fading out my voice now, and let's listen to them together, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hello, my name is Melanie, and I live in a suburb of New Orleans, Louisiana. I listen to the Reflections podcast because invariably there are situations, patterns of behavior, and life experiences presented that really resonate with me as a human being. I'm in my early 60s, and though my life statistics look pretty good on paper, I was not experiencing life as I thought I should be. And I thought, well, what is wrong with me? Is this what it's going to be like for the rest of my life? I am so overwhelmed. There has to be a way out. Other people seem to be managing life's pressures. What's the trick to it? So as I listened to the Reflections podcast, I learned that there is no trick. There's no magic spell. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with me. I'm just a human being having human experiences. So I use the Reflections as a mirror to look inward, and I use them as a guide for the actions that I can put into practice that help me to navigate what life brings into my awareness every day. For example, a major topic for me is not taking time out for myself, as if I don't even deserve it or I'm being selfish. I put everyone else's needs before my own, and that is so draining. I'm not able to be there for anyone else because I don't even fill up my own cup. I'm running on empty until I get sick. So I started showing up for myself, taking time for me, saying no and not feeling bad about it, setting up boundaries that work for me and the other person, claiming my own agency and thereby showing respect for myself and other people. And before I knew it, I shifted from a state of overwhelm to one of ease. And that is my ultimate goal. I also participate in the Reflections Club, where I can interact with other people and learn from their perspectives and their experiences regarding the podcast topics, which is very supportive, especially in knowing that I'm not alone. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have found my comments to be both thought-provoking and motivating. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carol. I live in Como, Italy. I have been listening to all episodes of the Reflections by Christiane. I was not convinced to listen to podcasts at the beginning when she invited me, but then I try. And now I make sure that I do not miss out on any episode. It is tough to choose one favorite because every single episode is gold. Anyway, recently I have re-listened to the episode on perfectionism, and I have those aha moments again. So this is the magic of listening to Reflection by Christiane. She is able to break down the most banal topics of daily life and provide you with the whole new perspective. If you haven't tried on yet, I invite you to just start with any episode, any title that stand out to you, and get ready to be amazed. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allison, and I am a longtime friend and client of Christiane's and a follower of the podcast since the very beginning. And I have to say, it's been a real pleasure to see her evolution in this format. And I look forward to each episode when it arrives. It's really hard to pick a favorite episode. There are so many that have impacted me, but I think one that's really stuck with me over and over this year was back in January, I think, the reflections on I don't have time. And I know Christiane's laughing when she hears this, and she knows I picked this one because it's something I've said over and over again for years, constantly. One of the things she said in this episode that I actually did was to sit down and make a list of things that are essential in my life, so crucial sort of for my overall health. And then look at that list and say how much is related to basic needs versus discretionary activities, and then how many of these things actually relate to well-being. And that was a shock for me because I'm someone who thinks I do things for myself and for other people all the time. And I realized I definitely was doing a lot of things for other people, but not enough for me. And I hadn't really defined my priorities. And I would, get distracted by the urgent and the constant list of new things popping up. And there was always time for everything else except what I wanted to be doing. So I made some conscious changes to move towards doing more of the things that I value and spend my time in a way that aligns with my values. And over the year, that's, the result has been I say no more often, a lot more often. I've made myself a priority in the planning of my daily and kind of weekly schedules. And I've sort of given up a pretty regular Instagram habit, and shocking, I've got all this time to dedicate to, doing things for myself in a way that I would not have really realized how much I spend time doing things that didn't really matter. So I've seen a real difference from all of this. And it's not about an overhaul, right? It was little baby steps, which is what I think she said. But it's also something that I feel is a consistent theme with all of Christiane's prompts and many of her bits of sage wisdom. It's never about having to make these drastic changes. It's about looking at where you can see in your life how you could make it richer and more rewarding. And I look forward to 2026 to see what she's got in store for us.
My name is Viola. I'm Italian, and I've been listening to the Reflections podcast since the beginning. Many episodes have been very important to me, gently guiding me toward a deeper understanding of some crucial aspects of my life. My favorite is the one on emotions, because I think it's a topic of the utmost importance. In our world, it is widely believed that there are positive and negative emotions. So many times I've been told, don't be angry or don't be sad. Instead, it's so important to understand that it's okay to feel all emotions, even the challenging ones, and that there's nothing wrong with having them. To prepare this little share of mine, I went back and listened to that episode again, and it made me smile. It was released almost 2 years ago, and listening again now, I realize how new this concept was to me at the time, and how normal and integrated in my life it is now. I learned that if I allow myself to feel whatever emotion comes up, to let it flow through me, despite the discomfort, just like it came, it'll pass. And this makes it much easier to bounce back to a state of balance. over time, it's become perfectly natural to give myself permission to feel my emotions. And this allowed me to recover from moments of great pain much more quickly than ever before. Also, in my relationships with others, it now comes naturally to me to welcome all emotions when someone opens up to me and shares how they feel. I no longer tell anyone, don't be sad or don't be angry. And this practice, with consistency and time, is helping me improve my relationships with people who are very important to me.
I just love Christiane's reflections. It's a tool that I use quite often. I listen to every episode she releases, and it's a simple tool that requires almost nothing from me. I can listen to it whenever. I don't need anything special, no equipment to do this, and it has a big impact on my life. It depends on me totally how deep I want to go. She always throws a topic at me, and then it depends on me how deep I want to research this topic. But there's a lot of food for thought in every single reflection Christiane releases. For me, listening to Christiane's reflections is definitely self-care. Whenever I choose to listen, I choose to dedicate those 20 minutes to myself. And afterwards, I always feel calmer and more grounded. I feel more at peace and I feel reconnected to myself. It's amazing what those 20 minutes can do. I love listening to reflections whenever I'm taking a walk by myself or whenever I'm driving in my car by myself. It has an instant effect on me, and it also affects how I go about my day. Sometimes the things she says linger in my head for days, sometimes even for weeks or longer. Another thing I appreciate about reflections is that once Christiane releases an episode, it stays uploaded, so I can return back to the same episode whenever I need, and it happens quite often actually. It also makes me realize I'm never the same person. I constantly change, because if I listen to the same episode 1 month apart, I get to hear it from a completely different perspective. So maybe at first glance, it looks like Christiane offers wide topics, but in reality, if I let myself listen from my personal perspective, if I put down my guards, if I listen to reflections honestly, there is so much material and it becomes very, very deeply personal. My favorite episode is Reflections on Rain. It's soothing and calming, and it gives me a sense of agency in my life. So thank you, Christiane, for doing this for us. I'm deeply grateful.
I want to say you are absolutely 1,000% correct. It is painful to hear your own voice. So congratulations to 100 times of doing this, or 99 times of doing this. I cannot even imagine. What I will say is that thank you for daring to every week jump into another topic, another inspiration, another something learned and something to be shared. I know from the beginning, Reset Reflections has always felt like it is not something that is superficial. And it's always felt like when you speak, it's the topic and what you're talking about speaks to a deeper place within myself. And I think about 99 opportunities for reflection, 99 opportunities to reset, and 99 invitations to be curious about your one and precious life. It's been a journey, and what an awesome offering, a body of content to refer to. I know there are times where I'm feeling lost and I want to hear or want to tap back into this conversation. And I put on a Your Reset reflection, and it always feels like it's right on time. And it always feels like there's something for me to nibble and to chew on and to frankly have an entire meal that's going to create an opportunity for a deeper relationship with myself. So I thank you, Christiane. I thank this community of listeners who participate. I thank you for your constant dedication, because I know a new episode is dropping on a Monday. It's just such a gift. And I am so excited for the next 100 more.
I'm deeply touched and moved, and I'm curious what your experience was like. But before diving in, let's just let those voices hang in the air for a moment. There's a very specific kind of beauty in hearing people speak from that real, unpolished place. I can almost feel the echo of their experiences sitting here with me. And I suppose you might feel it too. It's a reminder that even though our paths are deeply personal, the essence of what we're navigating is something we share. I would like to pause here and say a huge, heartfelt thank you to everyone who shared their voice with us today. It's one thing to do this work privately, but it's a whole other level of generosity to speak it out loud and offer it to this community. And I'm so deeply moved by your honesty and willingness to share. Thank you for letting us walk with you. There is something so life-giving in those reflections. And in the work I do, I spend a lot of time simply witnessing this process in people's lives over the years. And I have to tell you, it's truly breathtaking. It's not about seeing someone get fixed or finally reaching some perfect state of being or figuring it all out. It's about watching someone move through their challenges and emerge with a completely different kind of presence. It's a softening, a shift in the way they occupy their own skin, their own lives. I'm curious, as you were just listening to those voices, what was that like for you? Did one of those stories resonate more than the other? Was there a specific moment where you thought, yes, I know exactly what that feels like? Or maybe none of them landed. Maybe you're listening for the very first time and you're just trying to get a feel for what we're doing here. I want you to know that whatever your experience was just now, it's just perfect. Because the way you are meeting those voices right now, that quiet internal response you're having, that's the work. That is the living reality of your own maturation. It starts with the noticing and staying with yourself while you listen. That's the first part. But it's so easy to dismiss that quiet shift, isn't it? We've been conditioned to look for the big things. We get pulled into this measurable world, the numbers, the metrics, even the popularity of our own healing process. We look for external proof that we're doing it right. There's this quote by Audrey Hepburn that has this refreshing way of putting it. Success is like reaching an important birthday and finding you're exactly the same. I love that because it points to a reality we often overlook. You can hit every milestone, the 100th episode, the promotion, the perfect lifestyle, just for some examples. And yet inside that familiar bracing against life is still there, that feeling like something is not quite right. There's a stuckness somewhere. And if we're only looking at what can be measured, we might miss the most breathtaking part of the journey. Often growth is talked about as an attainment, as if we're chasing a version of something, even ourselves, that is perhaps more. But in the reality of the body-mind being maturation, growth process, there seems to be less about attaining and more about allowing. one could say it's about our capacity to meet life and ourselves exactly as we are. Now, that requires a certain quality of honesty, not as a goal to be reached, but as a willingness to see the reality of our own internal landscape. Because our maturation is so often determined by just how willing we are to be honest with ourselves about what is exactly happening in the moment. What would happen if we stopped measuring ourselves for a while? If we stopped trying to create something we think the world needs from us and instead lived more into the intangible felt experience of what actually brings us alive? What would it feel like to just engage with life from that space? I think for many of us, the reason we don't always move towards what brings us alive is that we're quite attached to the way things are. Even if those things are heavy, we get comfortable in the definitions we've built for ourselves, the roles we play, the who we've spent years becoming. It's comfortable because it's known, even if it may be heavy. And this brings us to a very delicate part of the process in growth, because as much as we love the image of blooming and the idea of becoming, we often forget that for a seed to grow, its outer shell eventually reaches a point where it begins to open. And for us as humans, that opening, that cracking of the identity we've known, can feel quite vulnerable. As you move through this process, if you so choose it, you eventually reach a point in your growth where you will need to make a choice. It's the choice between staying attached to who you think you are, and whatever that looks like, or allowing that grip to loosen. And it is a significant moment. It's the choice to slowly release and let go of, quote unquote, it, that old version, that old bracing, so that you can finally allow yourself to just be, to move into what is actually true for you now. Now, I want to be clear, this doesn't have to be a shattering. When this work is done slowly and gradually, and you are supported by someone you trust, someone who can hold space for you to navigate those transitions, well, then it doesn't have to feel like a crisis. Instead of a breaking, it becomes a navigated unfolding, filled with a plethora of experiences. You navigate one step at a time. You start to realize that you won't fall apart when you no longer recognize that old successful version of yourself. You learn that the dissolving of the old identity isn't an end, it's the beginning of your reality. And having a context for that unfolding makes all the difference. So I'm curious, as you sit here with me today, where do you find yourself on that path? Maybe you're already right in the thick of that unfolding, feeling the old definitions fall away. Or maybe you're just starting to notice a slight tightness in the shell, a sense that the old ways of being don't quite fit anymore, but you're not quite sure what to do. Or perhaps right now, everything feels exactly as it should and you're just here listening. Wherever you are, it's perfect. So I'm wondering, what would it feel like to simply notice the grip today? Not to judge it or force it to change, but to just notice it, to acknowledge that you are at a point in some aspect of your life where you can choose. It's that very process, that gentle, honest inquiry into your own reality that I've been witnessing with Reba Joy. We decided to sit down and just talk about the actual experience of this journey, this path. Not the perfect version we may see online, but the real one, the shifts, the hurdles, and the quiet beauty of Reba's becoming more of who she truly is. So now we'll shift into that conversation, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay. So I'm welcoming Reba into this conversation. Hi, Reba.
Hi.
We're going to have a really raw and real, unedited exchange about growth, well-being, and your personal experience, which I just love that you opened up to doing this for the 100th episode. So you want to share with the listeners, your why and who you are, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there. How's that sound?
All right, we can do that. My name is Reba Joy. I'm from New Orleans, and I have been in conversation with Christiane for many years, through many seasons of my life. And I decided to do this to just open up to something new.
Okay. Thank you for being here. In this podcast, people are accustomed to only hearing my voice. And for this episode, I wanted to create a tapestry of different voices from the real live human beings who listen in and engage with your reset reflections and the other work that I offer to people. So how would you describe where you are right now in your own place in your life and like what you're working with in your own self-development?
I would say like right now, it feels like I'm in a new space. It feels like I'm in a new season that I haven't seen or experienced before. And it's just something I'm trying to be with versus like trying to do what I've done in the past, which is like trying to make it look like something else or match a different picture in my mind of what I thought this season of my life should look like or feel like or be like. Yeah. So I'm just figuring it out.
How do you go about navigating that?
Oh, I try to hold on really hard to the tools that we've shared over the years, especially with the more recent series. For whatever reason, those stick with me or stuck with me differently. So they're kind of like in my brain closet. Like I can just easily remember them and allow myself to just lay there and fall into them. But as we talked about in the Reflections Club, I have been a person that finds something that works and then I want to just keep doing that same exact thing. And that may not be what creates like challenge and growth. That might be what creates like comfort and I don't want to say stuckness, but sameness.
Yeah, there is that desire for I would say most people to find something that works. And I think it's what gets that not that there's anything wrong with finding something that works, but naturally over time we shift and change and grow, and what may work at one point is eventually not going to work. And the need to stimulate our entire being, but not an overstimulation, but bringing ourselves to a point of where is my edge? Now, that doesn't mean one has to live on one's edge, right? But if you're, say, working with an aspect of your life where you feel like you've gotten super comfortable, that's a nice place to stay for a while. But to move beyond that, what's going to be necessary? It's going to mean needing to come to that edge. And when one comes to their edge, there's going to be discomfort, there's going to be fear, there's going to be doubt, there's going to be all of those things that come up that can then keep one from stepping back from the edge.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think in your experience is giving yourself the possibility to consistently show up for yourself? And when you feel it's right to come to the edge, even if you don't know what's going to be on the other side of that edge, what's allowed you to continue just to stay with it over such a long period of time with all the challenges life throws you?
Because I do think it has been I think it's 10 years this year. And I think what allows me to come back despite like the resistances that for sure bubble up, whether it's resistance to get on my mat or resistance to like slow down and breathe or resistance to show up to a workshop or like when you did those shorter series, like 1-day events, is the fact that I know that on the other side, there's something that I needed. Like I won't be the same person. So I know that it's worth moving through something that's temporary. Like it's an excruciatingly temporary feeling or emotion. And it shows up in life in all areas, whether it's like my dishes are piling up, which they no longer do. And I'm very grateful. But not allowing that stuckness to stay, like knowing that, okay, I see this thing building up. I see the clothes piling up. I see the way that I'm reacting to life. And I just need to do the thing anyway, because it's not supportive for it to just pile up. That's not going to work.
Yeah, there's some wisdom. That temporariness of the experience and being able to know because of your experience and your continued consistency that the discomfort is temporary. So I think what I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is an action is going to be needed to move through that temporary, to get on the other side, to gain access to whatever you felt you needed at the moment. And when you say felt needed, I think it's important to remind who's listening, we're not talking about fixing anything because I don't believe you're broken or anyone that I work with is broken, right?
Correct.
I think more what we're referring to it, but you correct me if I'm wrong because I don't have a magic wand here or glass. You're talking about really just resetting and coming back to center and beginning again from a state of
Correct.
wholeness or as much wholeness as you can access at the moment. Yeah.
Because that overwhelm or whatever emotion I'm feeling is temporary, even though it can feel like this is everything. It's actually just a blip and it will pass. And I
Mm,
will still have my needs to attend to.
mm, mm. So if we take this and build upon it, how would you say, the podcast is 2 years old now. How would you say it supported you in navigating your life through these challenges? And is there a particular favorite episode? I mean, I know that might be a challenging one. There doesn't have to be one, but maybe one, the most recent that you've loved, or go with it with how you'd like. This is raw and real conversation, so.
um, I would say that the podcast, like life can feel very busy, life can feel very fast, and life can feel, I don't know, especially in the 2020 pluses, a little chaotic. And the podcast, because it is so different than where other persons of podcasting are coming from, it feels like this moment to refocus. It's like if I work on a roller coaster, I can remember that the ground is right there. And you've also given me something to look at. And by that, I mean something within myself to look at. And that is helpful for just taking a seat on the ground versus riding around in the air and feeling a little crazy. Um, and my favorite podcast episode still to right now in this season is about agency and remembering that I have agency in my life and in my world versus feeling like a victim to any set of scenarios.
Hmm, that's a game changer, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How do you tap into that agency as
Hmm.
of late?
I think what my experience is remembering that I am, and maybe it's not remembering, but knowing at a deeper level that I truly am like the one that's created it. So it's not like someone or something is doing something to me. Like whatever my experiences are, whatever my life looks like is my creation and I can change it. But that doesn't mean that it's like as easy as like flipping a switch. It's
No, definitely.
it's like, oh, I see what I've done there. That's like really cool. I don't actually want that anymore, but I may need like different support to get to a place of, oh, now I'm creating what I want. And it's actually really clear, because I think lately I've had more clarity, especially around the piece that you spoke to earlier about taking action. Because just like my favorite positions have been to like be on my back on a mat, it's like that's not going to move a needle. Like that's not going to create a shift that I need. Like I need to be moving. I need to take action. Like being passive is not, it's not going to do anything.
Yeah, and sometimes I think people today aren't even aware of the possibilities of the actions to take and haven't quite yet developed the capacity to learn that, to ask oneself the question, well, what do I need right now? And based on what do I feel like I need right now, what's driving that need? Do I really need to meet that need, or is there something else that I need versus what I really want, right? And then getting curious about engaging with something that is an action, and non-action is an action. But even when we're sitting in stillness, there's a lot that's unfolding within that can't be seen, right? And this capacity to learn that what worked yesterday may not work today. And when I say work, I mean helping oneself find ease once again, and a groundedness and a steadiness amongst all that's going on and unfolding in the world, because we're distinct, but we're not separate from what's unfolding. And a lot is happening globally, right? This is a challenging time to be living through, but it's also a huge opportunity to take on the work of what you're speaking to just right now. My world and how it's appearing is a reflection of where I'm coming from. And I want to own that and take responsibility for that, because it's only when I do that then a shift is possible. And so if you were to send a message to the listeners today, or an invitation, what would you say?
I would say that going to the scary places is worth it. I would say that you should do it anyway, even though it is scary and you may feel a host of different resistances crop up, even just listening to the podcast. Just the pacing, because it challenges you in every facet to slow down. And that is not the automatic default of our society right now. Our society is like go at rapid speeds to the point of you like losing all footing and your breath. So those little micro challenges, or even if you do the other thing, because you spoke to the questions to be with, it's like if you were to look at my house, there are questions on every wall and most of the rooms, because that's how frequently I need to be reminded to just look back at myself. Like the one taped to my computer is Walker, there is no path. The path is made by walking, which is something you said, I don't know how many months ago. And I don't know if it was on a podcast or in a series. But the reminder that I can't think my way through what I want, that I have to be present, is important. And for whatever reason, it seems to take years for it to really seep in there. It takes much longer than I would have hoped. But
there's the slow process showing up again. Yeah, it's like it arrives at a different layer, and then you get to that layer, you settle into that layer, and then the next opening's possible, and then it arrives at the next layer, right? So it's I think personally what I love about this body of work is that it has no endpoint, there is no arrival, there is no mastery. If anything, it supports us in embracing our humanity. It's not trying to stop being human. It's learning what it is to be a human, and then support oneself. And even when we show up for others with greater compassion and humanity, because everyone's walking through a human experience. And although there may be different languages and cultures and politics and belief systems and geographical settings, etc., etc. Underneath it all, we all have one thing in common. We're human beings. And that human experience, what it is to navigate that human experience from a depth of compassion and love and kindness towards oneself and others, it's a game changer.
I agree. And I think, like, listening to you speak, it reminds me of another thing that's come up for me after like all of this time being in connection with you and this work that you do, which is healthy non-attachment. Being able to really just take a step back and just observe and not get caught up in the wind. So I feel like sometimes I'm in conversations with people and they want me to be very excited. And it's like, no, that's just your path. That's awesome. I'm really happy for you. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to the unfolding in our friendship and relationship and navigating these lives together. And I want to thank you for being willing to have this real, raw, unedited conversation, and allow others to hear about your experience in first person.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay. I want to take a moment to thank Reba, not just for her wisdom, but for her willingness to share so much of herself with us today. There's a real soft power in just being seen in the middle of our own unfolding. As you listen to her share a part of her experience as she navigates life, I'm curious what actually resonated with you. What part of her story felt like a mirror? I invite you to just sit with that for a moment, because that spark of resonance is an inner calling. It's life tugging at you, knocking at your door. It's a call to finally listen and take that baby step toward whatever it is that needs to be looked at. Perhaps that thing you've been ignoring or living on top of, simply waiting for you to acknowledge its presence. And if you decide to answer that knock, to really engage, the landscape of your life will naturally begin to shift. But this isn't a choice we make only on a rational level. It has to go deeper than that, because our actions are driven by our context. Now, when I say context, I'm talking about the invisible internal environment you are living from, the sum of your history, your beliefs, and your nervous system's patterns. If our actions are the fruit on a tree, context is the soil the tree is planted in. Crucially, we are working with this soil simultaneously in the body-mind. We often talk about the body and the mind as if they are separate rooms, but they are actually distinct but not separate. They make up the entirety of our being. To return to an experience of wholeness, we have to engage with that entirety. Linguistically, this is a challenge to grasp. Most of us tend to favor the mind because it feels easier. It's more familiar and rational. We go there because the body is often where the old, stored, undigested experiences live. It's where the bracing actually resides. But we cannot treat them as separate. We are working with the soil of our total experience, and this is why maturation takes time. There are multiple levels here, and they reveal themselves only when they are ready. This isn't a journey that can be rushed. We don't get to decide the speed. It is something larger than us. But what we can decide is to stay connected to the conversation. It is the choice to keep showing up, no matter what, to continue to engage even when things are good. This isn't just doing the work. It's about the staying power, to show up no matter what is unfolding, no matter how we are experiencing it. When we engage like this, it becomes like oxygen, giving us the space to breathe freely. It sustains us like soul food. trusting and knowing that it is the action of showing up with consistency, with courage, and with a relentless willingness to be honest with ourselves that in time allows the shift to unfold slowly and naturally. And in that process, you realize you have allowed who you truly are to finally come to the surface and be seen, little by little. This evolution isn't just something you feel within. It is also felt without. I call this the social echo. It's that delicate space where your growth meets the reality of the relationships around you. When you stop carrying the things that aren't yours to carry, the people who were used to you holding them might feel the shift. If those around you are comfortable with the status quo, a certain tension can arise. How that shows up is as unique as your own life. But as the old naturally falls away, it creates space for who and what resonates with you today. This process is deeply private and personal, and at the same time, it is completely universal. In those moments when things feel shaky, I hope you'll remember Einstein's reminder: not everything that counts can be counted. We live in a world that wants to measure progress by what is visible, but the growth we are talking about here, the staying power, the internal alignment, the courage to be honest, it's immeasurable. People can't always see the work of each baby step, but those unmeasurable moments are the ones that count the most. Because the reality of our maturation, the best and most beautiful parts of it, cannot be seen or even touched, as Helen Keller said. They must be felt with the heart. Your growth is a felt experience. It's a shift in your reality that belongs to you. It's you finally finding your own ground. So as we close this 100th reflection, I want to invite you back to that first image of growth you had at the beginning of our time today. Does it feel any different now? Does it feel a little less like a ladder and a little more like home? I'll leave you with these words from Hermann Hesse. When we are truly ourselves, many people may walk away, but that creates the space for the right ones to arrive. Before I go, I want to say a very deep and personal thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me into your ears and your lives for these first 100 episodes. It is a profound honor, very humbling, to witness your journey and to grow alongside you. If this conversation or any of the reflections over the past 2 years has felt like a home for you, I'd be so grateful if you'd share it with someone you care about. Or maybe just take a second to like or follow the podcast. It really helps these conversations reach the people who need it most. And please, reach out. I truly want to know what landed for you today. You can find me through my website or on social media. I care about your experience, and I love hearing how these seeds are growing in your world. Don't forget to take moments to pause and simply be and breathe. Be kind to yourself, and I'll see you over the next episodes. Be well. If you are interested in working with me on any level of body-mind well-being, whether it be through individual body-mind maturation work sessions, perhaps participating in a series, individual privates, or through my video-on-demand services, if you have questions, if you would like to engage on any level, feel free to schedule a free 15-minute consult in the appointments section, www.christianepiano.com, or email me directly at growth@christianepiano.com.